several government administrations and a host of legislators spent over a decade and numerous rounds of public consultation agreeing the specific provisions of the National Conservation Act, which passed unanimously in 2013. The Act establishes the National Conservation Council that was created to promote and secure biological diversity and the sustainable use of natural resources in the Cayman Islands. Many in our community feel directly the continuing loss of Cayman's natural heritage and are growing increasingly concerned that our native habitats and unique plants and animals will not be known by the generations that follow us. At present, the Act provides the only legal means of giving effect to the constitutionally protected principles of sustainability, whereby social, economic, and environmental perspectives have equal weight at the table. The National Conservation Council has a mandate to ensure that we can continue to enjoy the magic of Cayman's biodiversity for many generations to come. But to be successful, we all must work together as a community to build and preserve the Cayman that we want and wish for our children to inherit.
Our rich and diverse natural environment is one of our most important assets. Our clear turquoise waters, vibrant reefs and white sand beaches attract visitors to our shores every year. Our dry forests provide refuge for wildlife and revitalize our soil, but our islands provide us with so much more than that. These same natural assets can also protect us from disasters. Strong coral reefs are our first line of defense against intense storm waves. Healthy seagrass beds and mangrove forests slow down powerful waves, protect the coast, and provide a nursery for the sea creatures we depend on. Native coastal plants, like mangroves and sea grape trees, fortify our coastline and reduce the risk of erosion and flooding from storms, while our native forests stimulate our rain cycles and help to control inland flooding. From ridge to reef, we are nurtured by nature. Stop, take a picture, breathe it all in. Our incredible Cayman Islands are home to everything we love. We need to protect their natural bounty so they can continue to protect us. Cayman is partnering with the UK governments to better understand how nature can keep our communities safe and create new opportunities for jobs and livelihoods. Economic resilience requires environmental resilience.
Previous meetings which need to be approved by the council. The first meeting was held almost a year ago, for December 2024. Everybody's had a chance to review those minutes and made comments at working group sessions. Does any member have a comment that they want to make on those minutes? Correction, addition? Is there a motion to move that we accept the minutes?
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. In favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's carried. And on to the second set of minutes from the 2nd of June of this year. Again, do we have any comments, additions by the members present? A motion to accept?
I motion to accept.
And seconded by Kathleen. Thank you. And it's adopted. All right, now we'll move on to our reports, beginning with the Department of Environment, Public Education and Outreach, Coral Reefs. Tim.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Yes, most council members and indeed the viewers will probably be aware through the press that stony coral tissue loss disease has been confirmed in the Sister Islands. People will be aware the disease was first started in Grand Cayman, circumvented the reefs and brought considerable destruction to living coral. Unfortunately, that disease is now present in the Sister Islands in Little Cayman in the southwest corner, and the department is doing everything we can to work with the diving communities to try to slow the spread of this disease and to prevent it from getting to Cayman Brac. We plan to have a meeting with the diving community this Friday. We've also shipped some disinfectant gear to the Sister Islands, and we'll be having we're encouraging all the divers that frequent the Sister Islands to please disinfect the gear. It really is probably the most likely method with which it can get transported around the islands and indeed to the Sister Islands. We're also encouraging divers actually to stay out of the infected areas, which is obviously the southwest corner. We recognize this could be difficult when weather conditions force diving onto the south coast, but any avoiding of the area is really encouraged. The DOE has set up 2 disinfecting stations, both one on Cayman Brac and one on the Little Cayman at our offices, and we encourage divers that are resident divers who maybe not be using a diving company to please make use of those facilities to disinfect their gear. The DOE itself will continue to monitor the progress of the disease. We have already visited the sites and done some preliminary investigations, but we will continue to monitor its progress and to report back. But hopefully this disease does not spread as virulently as it did around Grand Cayman. We know a lot about the disease, and so we will be monitoring it. Thank you.
Any questions for Tim? Pretty dire news.
It is, unfortunately, yeah. I mean, it was a matter of time.
Yeah. And it will spread further.
We anticipate that if it behaves as it did in Grand Cayman, then yes, it will spread quite rapidly.
Okay, thanks.
How often are they monitoring it?
So our resources on the island are not as good as Grand Cayman, so we're going monthly at the moment, and we're using photogrammetry, so we have quite sophisticated camera techniques that allow us to get 3D models of the reef. So we're using that technique, but at the moment we'll be visiting monthly. We're also investigating or potentially looking at equipping some of the Sister Island staff with the ability to use antibiotics on some of the larger corals. We've done that in Grand Cayman and it works very well. It's extremely resource intensive, so it's something that we have to really think long and hard about how we go about doing this in the Sister Island.
Tim, is there any thought with the boats, the ballast of the boats and things like that? Was that what was...
So that's a very good point. During the Grand Cayman outbreak, there was a lot of focus on bilge water as a potential transmission. If you've got the ability to disinfect the bilge, then a small cup of bleach into the bilge does help. But at the moment, we're focusing on the dive gear. So that is potentially another transmission method.
And the dive shops will be set up again in Little, like they were previously, where divers all have to disinfect if they're coming from other...
Exactly, yeah. So we'll be meeting the dive community on Friday to try to figure out what is the best way forward.
And could the Dive community be part of the response when the little came out, since the DOE isn't there all the time?
They could be. We've again had some discussion about that. The application is quite it's quite a delicate operation. It's something that we don't want to encourage everyone to just go out and do. So we have to be really extremely closely managed. So at the moment we're not equipping divers, but we do have some staff in Little Cayman that we think we will be able to train up and to prepare to be able to interact with the coral if we need to.
Is there signage out for shore divers to be aware?
It's in the early stages, so yes, there will be signage. I don't think it's up yet, but there will be.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
No problem,
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
And I think you're up again for Cayman Sage.
Yes.
Update.
Yes, just to let the council know and to let the general public know that the conservation plan for Cayman Sage has come into effect. We are doing public outreach to let people know what that entails. The plan can be found on the National Conservation website if anybody would like to take a look at it. But yes, that is now fully in effect. So good.
Okay. Let's move on to the EAB, the Environmental Assessment Board report, and it's just, we have, I think, one item. Gina, the letter.
This is the letter that the council sent, Mr. Chairman, to the minister regarding the Environmental Assessment Board's final report on the East-West Arterial EIA. So the end of the EIA process is that the EAB produces a final report that reviews the EIA and basically highlights those things that we think are important for the government or the decision makers to be aware of. So that was communicated to Minister Ebanks-Wilkes on the 8th of August, and essentially we just say council has had the opportunity to review the report from its subcommittee, the Environmental Assessment Board, and that we highlighted a number of important findings for her to take into account. One of them was the selection of the route. We simply reiterated the fact that the EAB recommended B2 because it was predicted to be cheaper and better for the environment. And, gave some reasons behind that for her. Obviously, this is the cover letter that went to the minister. The actual report has all of this in a lot more detail. It's available, I should say, on the NCC's website. So if anybody wants to download that report, you can go and look at it under our EIA section. The second thing we highlighted was the benefits of the proposed solar canopy. So I think everybody is aware that construction of the East-West Arterial would involve removal of quite a lot of mangrove wetland in the footprint of the road. And the estimate that the consultants produced was that in and of itself would produce almost 204,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And so obviously part of the EIA was about searching for ways to mitigate that additional release of carbon dioxide equivalent to the environment. And the consultants therefore explored the opportunity of putting a solar panel canopy along the length of the road. So in the cost-benefit analysis, what we wanted to point out was that, almost 35% of the total predicted net present value of the proposed project could be attributed to the fact that there was a solar canopy being proposed. And without that solar panel array, the benefits of the proposed project are much less. And the point we are making is that that solar panel array is outside of the ambit of the NRA, so there's no guarantee that that mitigation measure will come forward to offset the loss of the mangroves. So that's what we wanted, the minister and cabinet hopefully to understand. And then the third point is that, despite the EIA showing that there would be minimal benefits in terms of saved time for people, the road is not a panacea for the island's traffic problems. That is very clear from the assessment that was done on the NRA's own traffic data. And that we really do need to get serious about, having some kind of national agreed target or scenario for population growth against which we can plan for major infrastructure like roads. So that's what we communicated to the minister and asked that she then pass this on, as well as the full report, to cabinet. So that closes the East-West Arterial EIA process
And that letter was sent,
on the 8th of August.
and have we heard
No,
back from the minister?
no, I have not yet heard. Or it would be John that would hear, or yourself, presumably, because it was sent, as through John.
Okay, does council have any additional comments? We all had a hand in writing this letter. Thanks for the summary, Gina. Hopefully, the recommendations will be heard. Okay. Let's move on then to our annual report from 2024. Normally, I think the council's annual reports are supposed to be approved within 4 months? 3 months?
3 months.
3 months of the year end. Council wasn't in a position to do anything 3 months into 2025, as we did not have a quorum. So we are now ready, able to, council's reviewed the annual report for last year, out of which there's a recommendation coming next on the agenda. But just before we vote on the approval, again, council, does anybody have some general comments to be made about the report?
Nothing.
Good
Come
report.
on.
Yeah.
It's a
yeah,
good report.
yeah, it's-
Congratulations. on the
Yeah,
report.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the annual report 2024?
I will move to approve that.
And I'll second.
Sam seconds it. No further discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
It's so approved. Tim, do you mind just going to page you are already there? 7.
Let me make it larger for you all.
So this was in the report. Entry into force of the National Conservation Act, 2 sections, 46 and 47 of the Act were never enacted, I guess, or approved by Cabinet. And so
Yeah.
they remain hanging out there, requiring Cabinet order paper to enable us to act on those 2 sections, which I'm going to ask Tim just to go over what those 2 sections of the NCA enables or suggests. One's a guidance note, and one's more of a direction.
Okay, certainly I'll use the preamble from the motion if that is, so most of the council will be aware that one of the sections of the National Conservation Act gives the council the function of managing and making recommendations for the use of the Environmental Protection Fund. The fund was first created in 1997 and came into effect through the LA. It's been in effect ever since. The National Conservation Act, of course, came into effect December 2013, but as the chairman has already indicated, sections 46 and 47 at that time were not implemented. Various sections of the law have now come into effect through 2015 and 16, but again, 46 and 47 remain to be done. So section 46 and 47 are outstanding, and although the council has in fact issued some guidance notes on the use of the Environmental Conservation Fund, those are in effect, but the actual sections of the law are not. So the primary purpose of the fund as it was initially established was for the acquisition and management of protected areas to protect and conserve protected species and their critical habitats. So that was really more or less the main aim of the fund. It has to some extent been used already for some land purchases and various other projects within government. And at the moment, I believe the fund still remains fairly well stocked with funds to be able to continue doing that. So, yeah, that is more or less the background, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Tim. So the impetus here is that we would like Cabinet to basically agree with us that the EPF be used for protected areas, not for other budgetary operational matters, which has happened in the past. And so we want to preempt that from happening again. And so we have a motion that I'll read out for everybody, but which is therefore under the NCA section 3.9 subset A, the council makes the following recommendations to Cabinet on the use of the Environmental Protection Fund. A, sections 46 and 47 of the National Conservation Act be brought into force in 2025 after the passage of the Cayman Islands Government 2026-27 budget. And that B, the National Conservation Council guidance note on the use of the Environmental Protection Fund produced in, I think, gazetted in 2016, be used to guide the selection of activities within the Cayman Islands 2026/27 budget to be supported with money from the Environmental Protection Fund. Is there someone to move it? Thanks, Nicholas. And a seconder? Okay. Any discussion?
Well, I would just like to point out that it's not the National Conservation Council's idea to do this. This is laid out in the National Conservation Law. As a matter of fact, it's the very first thing. That it was the very first function of the council is to manage the Environmental Protection Fund. So it's long overdue, I think, to make this final thing happen, to make sure that that does occur.
Absolutely. It's taking care of all business.
Yeah,
Yep.
100%.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I think it would probably be worth noting that the law, Section 46 of the law, basically doesn't propose a huge change to the way that that money is approved from the fund. It says that there continues to be established and managed an environmental protection fund to be used for the acquisition and management of protected areas and for measures to protect and conserve protected species and their critical habitat, pursuant to an appropriation in accordance with the Public Management and Finance Law. So essentially, it's basically saying that Finance Committee would continue to be the body that appropriates the money. Once the money is appropriated, then what we're saying is that Council in 2016 gazetted guidelines for the use of that money, and that's what we're trying to suggest, is that in accordance, as you point out, Kathy, in accordance with the law, as well as in accordance with 46 and 47 of this act here, that we simply sort of put this process into place where the council doesn't have control of the money, but we would advise Cabinet on the expenditures related to the EPF, essentially, is what we're saying.
That they're appropriate,
Yeah,
And this is an environmental protection fund.
absolutely.
And the name implies what it's for.
Yeah,
And that's not been the case in all matters,
no.
in all instances. So
And if 46 is brought, and if Section 46 is commenced, then that first section that I read out is actually in the legislation, so the purpose of it is right there.
So this is a very easy move by Cabinet to approve through an order paper, and now we would bring some much-needed structure to how EPF is used.
Mhm.
Can I have a vote? Those in favor? Thank you. Motion's been passed. All right. Now move on to the next item, which is the ratification of the Environmental Assessment Board for the Quarry 43A.
Okay,
We're just waiting for it to come up. Tina?
okay.
I'm not sure what's going on.
Seems like our screen isn't
Yeah.
working.
Let me just, I'm going to stop the share and start again.
Okay. What we're about to look at is a motion to ratify the Quarry EAB decision. We'll just wait a second. So it's important to see the background. Unless, Gina, you would like to just cover the background to the motion?
Sure. So back in February 2023, so I think it was before many of you were members of the NCC, the DOE was asked to prepare a screening opinion for a quarry that was being proposed on Block 43A, parcels 419 and 422. Essentially, the proposed quarry has a total area of 35.6 acres with a proposed area of excavation of 28.6 acres. And it's directly adjacent to the Meager Bay Pond protected area. It's intended to be accessed using a 30-foot road which connects to the southern boundary of parcel 43A. Parcel 422 of Block 43A. And they're proposing to excavate the quarry in 6 phases, starting from the south and moving north. So everybody, I think, is aware that Meager Bay Pond is one of our oldest protected areas, in that it was declared, the pond in a 300-foot wide buffer of mangrove was declared an animal sanctuary back in 1976. And when the NCC came into effect, the NCL came into effect, all of those animal sanctuaries were brought forward under the NCA as protected areas. So it came over as a protected area.
I don't know why, but it's not showing this.
And the management plan that the DOE proposed, oh good, we've got something back on the screen.
There's not me controlling it. I don't think. That's the screen, but it's not me controlling it.
Okay. So anyways, essentially what we're trying to do here is to ensure that because quarrying was noted as a severe threat to biodiversity in Meager Bay Pond in the management plan that was written and approved in 2022, we're essentially saying that retaining hydrological continuity with the site and the central mangrove wetland to the north is extremely important to the overall integrity of the protected area. And for that reason, we felt that an EIA that really focused on trying to understand that hydrological connectivity and how, we could potentially mitigate the impacts of quarries that are really close to Meager Bay Pond is something that we felt needed to be done. And, I know we've heard commentary before from the public that, well, there are other quarries near to Meager Bay Pond. Yes, there are, and that's how we know that they are affecting the pond and the biodiversity in the pond. So to approve another one is basically just folly in the minds of the DOE, and we needed to better understand how and why these impacts are taking place. We have a reasonable idea, but we need to do a really focused study on that and try to come up with mitigation measures if that's possible for these quarries that are adjacent to this longstanding protected area. So all we're saying now, so what happened was we wrote the screening opinion. The applicant did not engage in the EIA process at that time. They've since come back to us to say, we didn't at that time, but we would like to now. So we had another look at the screening opinion and essentially decided really nothing had changed. So what we're doing is asking council essentially to ratify the decision that we took to require the EIA. And that decision was taken, I think we briefed you guys about this in July. So that decision was taken, I think, on the 9th of July or something like that. And so we're just basically saying we're now proposing that council ratify the decision to resume the EIA, beginning with the empanelment of the EAB, which we also asked at the time for council to impanel the Environmental Advisory Board. So the appointed members would be the Director of the Water Authority or her representative, delegate, and the manager or managing director of the National Roads Authority or his delegate, and then the standing members of the EAB, which are myself as the chair, the Director of Planning, and Deputy Director for Research. So I am going to move the motion then, Mr. Chair. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
I just move the motion that council ratify the decision to resume the environmental impact assessment for the proposed quarry at 43A 419 and 422, beginning with the impanelment of the EAB as I've just outlined.
Is there a mover of the motion
Yes, I will.
and a second?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any discussion? This has been discussed for 2 years, so any further discussion? I hear none, so those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Against? It's carried.
Mr. Chairman, I just
Yeah, I know
want
you're going to abstain, sorry. Level 2,
because I've obviously been involved in
thank
writing
you.
this.
I was a little too ahead of myself. All right. Now we're moving on to another issue that requires a ratification at the general meeting, which is the Hyatt EIA screening decision. And Gina, again, could you walk us through the motion that we're
Yes.
about to ratify?
Sure. So just to remind members, this is the proposal for the Hyatt-centric hotel on West Bay Road on the existing site of the Margaritaville Resort. So it's basically a redevelopment of the Margaritaville Resort site. It is located in close proximity to a turtle nesting beach and designated critical habitat under the interim directive that was put in place for green and hawksbill and loggerheads, in fact, all turtle species in Cayman waters. So when we looked at the application and considered it against the screening criteria in the EIA directive, we concluded that it doesn't require an EIA. We acknowledge that there are likely to be significant adverse effects on turtles because of lighting if we don't get a proper turtle-friendly lighting plan coming forward, but we feel that we can deal with that through the planning process. Yeah, and we also thought that there could be adverse effects to visual impact, daylight, sunlight, and overshadowing. We've heard a lot of feedback from members of the public about these taller buildings that are coming forward and the effect they're having on shading on properties on either side, as well as shading of the beach in and of itself. But again, that is not really something that an EIA needs to, be studying. That is something that planning can take into their own consideration and come up with recommendations from a planning perspective about, what are the impacts on those type of amenity issues for the public. So yes, ultimately, like I said, we decided that there would be no EIA required, and that we didn't feel that there weren't any significant adverse effects that can't be anticipated and addressed through the normal planning process.
Okay, thanks, Gina. And we have a motion. Gina, do you want to move it again?
Sure.
Would you read it?
Sure,
First,
I will do. It is therefore proposed that the National Conservation Council ratify the decision taken on the 21st of August, 2025, that the proposed development for the Hyatt-centric EIA Hyatt-centric does not require an EIA, as there are unlikely to be significant adverse effects in the environment that cannot otherwise be considered and mitigated through the normal National Conservation Act Section 41 review processes.
is someone going to move this Motion?
Motion.
Thanks, Nick. Seconder? Geddes. Any discussion?
I think this isn't, I know that this would be through an EIA anyways, and it's similar to the lighting, but the actual construction of the building, obviously that would fall under what can be taken into consideration in terms of disruption of the beach and where the turtles would nest and things like
Yeah.
that. I mean, I get the lighting,
Yeah.
but also just the actual construction,
Yeah.
having, machinery and things like that out on the beach, that's something that obviously can be addressed
Yes.
in an appropriate
Yeah,
manner.
so we typically recommend for construction on any beach where there's nesting, not just critical habitat,
Yeah.
but on any nesting beach, we make the recommendation that the construction itself is encapsulated by a fence that is basically turtle-proof, and that's really a plywood fence. We have a technical note on how the fence should be designed, and so all of the developers, are aware of this, and they're provided with that. And planning has been pretty good about including that condition in the planning permission requirements, obviously, because we can't sort of impose that unless it's in the planning permission requirements. But they've been pretty good about that. And what that does is stop the turtles, accessing the actual construction site. For example, we require sand that they're excavating for foundations or pools to be put behind that fence so that the turtles can't get into those sand mounds, which we've seen happen from time to time, and nest. They look at it and go, oh, look at this,
Yeah.
nice area to nest.
Yeah.
So that's all locked away behind that construction fence. And those conditions have to be satisfied typically before any work can start.
And they can be enforced if they're not doing that.
Well, so this is where it gets tricky because the enforcement is up to planning. The Department of Environment's officers have no authority to enforce the planning legislation. So but we do try to work with planning when we see things happening that, we know shouldn't be happening, or they're starting work before the fence is properly put up or whatever. We have a team out on almost every beach from April to November, so every day, literally. So,
no.
so we have eyes, out there,
Yeah.
and things are usually pretty well monitored.
Gina, when you're talking about fencing, are you talking about a screened fencing?
No, I'm talking about a plywood fence.
Okay.
Yeah.
That they can't get under.
Yeah.
Right, that's what-
So it's embedded in the sand, so they
Right.
can't dig under it, and they can't get through it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because they will.
yes.
I think chain link and all. Don't they go through that?
And I think it's worth clarifying too, with all of, there's just been a couple of incidents that have been highlighted on social media recently about hotels being built at Seminole Beach, that not having an environmental impact statement doesn't imply that there's not environmental impacts that are
Correct.
happening.
Right,
Correct.
100%.
It just means that we understand what those impacts are and we can deal with them without the assessment needing to be done.
Or try to.
That's a really important point.
Section 41 review process remains intact and will be, activated once CPA gets the
Yeah.
application. But CPA, to their credit, are, already saying you need the turtle-friendly lighting and the fencing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they know we're going to say that.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions?
Yes.
The motion's carried. Thank you. We have, as the next item of business, Fred, if you'll join us, please. Another ratification motion. This one is on the updated procedures for the control of feral cats in environmentally sensitive areas. And we'll deal with the decision to ratify And we have Fred Burton from the Department of Environment joining us. Fred, do you want to go over the background for the ratification motion, which is on the screen for everyone? And then we'll get into a discussion of the procedures.
Okay. So as you all know, we have been operating under NCC procedures for some time now, which are involved, basically, we've been dealing on the sister isles primarily. We have, over the course of the last 2-3 years, removed over 85% of the feral cats from Little Cayman. And the environmental change that has resulted has been truly extraordinary. Yeah. The Sister Isles rock iguana population has been in catastrophic decline for quite a considerable while. And once we removed those cats, the population went back up into growth phase, and it's more than tripled in the last 2 years. We're getting a lot of feedback from the community on Little Cayman that, of course, we're monitoring the rock iguanas, and they're seeing that, but they're also seeing a lot of other species in numbers and age classes that they never saw. We've also been working on Cayman brack, trying to protect the brown boobies from feral cat predation, and we've definitely seen a remarkable change in the success rate of fledging from egg to flying young. A real change that happened very abruptly once we removed the 16 or so feral cats that were roaming across the east end of the bluff. So this is where we've been going, but these procedures we're operating under are simply allowing us to use cage trapping, live trapping using cages, and using a vet to euthanize the feral cats. All of the pet cat owners on Little Cayman have been registered. All of their pets are neutered and spayed, so they're not contributing to the feral population. We've got records of their owners and the microchips and everything, so if we catch somebody's pet cat, we return to the owners. This has gone as far as it can go on Little Cayman right now, and the Little Cayman community is very supportive of the idea that we should proceed to an eradication. We've put in a budget for 2026 to 7. We don't know if we'll get the money or not, obviously, yet, but we've put in a budget request to see if we can actually do that eradication. It would enable us not to get locked into perpetual control. It would result in cumulatively a much lower proportion of cats, number of cats that would have to be euthanized. If we can zero it out on Little Cayman, so to speak, and keep the pet cat population in a non-breeding state, then we've solved the problem, as long as we can keep biosecurity going and as long as we can keep control of any new incursions. Eradication requires more than one technique. We can't eradicate feral cats from Little Cayman with cage traps. So we are looking at additional procedures. We're also very interested in trying to do things in a more humane way. When you trap a feral cat in a cage and transport it, it's a very stressful experience for the cat. You transport it to the DOV base. It's held there in a cage, imprisoned as it were, until the vet is in a position to attend to it. And then it's physically restrained in the cage in order to be sedated. These aren't very humane steps, and it's becoming increasingly accepted now that it's far more humane to deal with the situation at the site the cat is trapped. And basically what we can do is we can slip along pit tag wand under the door of the trap, check to see if there's a pit tag, no pit tag, use our licensed rifles and do a precision shot through the brain, which gives instant brain death, and it's over. For a cat, that is far more humane. In human experience, there is a revulsion, naturally. But I think what we should be focusing on here is what is humane for the cat. So we want to move from veterinary euthanasia to include, not exclusively, but to include the option of gunshot euthanasia on site without transport. And that would be a generic thing. We could potentially be using that on Cayman brack as well. But for an eradication, we need other techniques. And the techniques we're proposing under very strict controls are a humane toxin, which is para-aminopropionephenone. It binds to the hemoglobin of animals and prevents the transport of oxygen in the blood. So a cat, for instance, that takes a lethal dose of PAP, as it's called in abbreviated form, will fall asleep. Basically, oxygen deprivation makes you tired and leads to sleep. And a cat that goes to sleep with a lethal dose of PAP will not wake up again. In an odd case for when some other animal might take the bait, and we're taking obviously a lot of precautions to make sure that doesn't happen, but if it does happen, a larger animal could get affected and get tired, but it would make a full recovery. The effect is completely reversible if it's not lethal. There's no secondary toxicity. So this is actually a very benign toxin. It's probably the best option we would have for the next phase of control of the cats. We think there's probably 50, 60, less than 100, but probably around about 50 odd feral cats still on the island. If we're able to sweep lines of toxic bait through the island, we'll get it down to probably single-digit cats. We can only offer these baits at night because during the daytime rock iguanas will reach up. They're dangling from above, and the cats can reach them, but so can rock iguanas. So we can't be poisoning rock iguanas. We can't deploy these baits during the day, but we can do this at night, set them in the dusk, bring them up at dawn. It would be a pretty intense operation, but it is feasible. We've established that this can actually be done. When we're down to those last few cats, we're probably going to have to also include soft-jaw leg hold traps. This is the third unrelated technique. So if a cat is afraid of going in a cage, not attracted to a dangling sausage, there's always a third option there, because we basically have to be able to get the last few cats out of the wild. So we're asking you to approve these procedures, partly to enable us to do that eradication, and partly to be able to move to more humane euthanasia options for the feral cats that we're working with. Is there anything I'm missing here?
Question.
You mentioned that the toxin does not have secondary toxicity. Can you explain what that means, please?
The compound itself is not a very stable thing. It's binding to hemoglobin, and when it binds to hemoglobin, it changes its chemical form. But also, if you think about what would scavenge on the carcass of a cat that has died that way, any residual PAP in the stomach is going to be a small proportion of what went in. And there just isn't really a scenario where something would take a lethal dose from an animal that size. So they've done a lot of testing of this in New Zealand and Australia, and there's just no sign of secondary toxicity happening.
So you're saying it wouldn't travel in the food chain?
No,
almost like owls and things would not be affected?
No, it's not that kind of thing. Because there are toxins like that. Some of the rat poisons, for instance, will do that. They'll get into the food chain, they get picked up by crabs, they end up in the marine environment, they end up in birds of prey. And this is why toxic baits for control of invasive species have got a really bad rap, because everybody knows about that. People have seen dogs that have died from taking rat poison. It's like bad. So we're trying to think about this in a very careful way, and we're staying away from those sorts of toxins that can get into the food chain and spread around like that.
And it's a controlled substance. This toxin is not available to the general public.
Oh, goodness, no. No, no, no. It's not. It is on the prescribed poisons list in the Department of Agriculture's legislation. If we were to use this, we would also have to get the Director of Agriculture to authorize this. And all that would have to be in place, the NCC procedures, the Department of Agriculture's authorization, before we could even import the PAP. So yes, it's not something that you can go to ALTs and pick up off the shelf.
Right.
Has this been tested on crabs, on the terrestrial crabs?
I can't answer that off the top of my head, but the crab isn't going to be able to reach the bait, you see, so the bait is...
No,
yeah.
But scavenging.
Scavenging, the crab would never be able to get at any residual PAP in the cat before it degraded, because basically the PAP is either either chemically changed in the hemoglobin of the blood, or there might be some residual in the gut. So it's a little gruesome to go into this scenario, but here's a dead cat on the rocks in Little Cayman, and the crabs start picking it, and they're going to go from the outside in. By the time they get to the gut, that PAP is long gone. It doesn't persist in a wet environment like that. It'll be not there anymore.
I have another question. It's about biosecurity. Presumably, if you manage to eradicate all the feral cats in Little Cayman, what prevents cat owners from releasing a cat, or somebody who leaves the island from letting a cat become feral, or people coming onto Little Cayman, bringing cats and releasing them? How do we control that source of...
So we have discussed a number of options for this, and we have actually, strangely enough, at least 3 different approaches we could take to make it illegal to bring a fertile cat into Little Cayman. One option is to use the NCC's powers and pass partly, I think, guidance notes, and partly it might need to be some kind of a directive. Another option would be to use the ESTTL, Endangered Species Trade and Transport Law, and make cats a banned thing unless you get a permit to move between islands. So we could control the movement of cats between islands under the ESTTL. Or the third would be to ask Cabinet to pass some custom regulations.
Okay.
A couple of questions. First was birds. You said it's mammals, right? It's mammal hemoglobin mammals. So I'm thinking birds that also might be attracted to the sausage hanging down.
And birds also have hemoglobin. So we had a team from Australia testing this, explicitly testing this. So what we did is we hung up a lot of sausages and put cameras on them and looked to see what was doing what. And the cats loved them. Unfortunately, the rock iguanas loved them. They stand up on their back legs and anything a cat can reach, an iguana can reach, a big iguana. We saw night herons literally walking right past these baits and ignoring them. I'm surprised. I was afraid that we'd have trouble with night herons, but in hundreds of track night observations, we didn't see a single. We saw night herons often, and we never saw them interact with the bait. Chickens tried to get at them, and again, that's just during the day, so it wouldn't happen the night. But the chickens, given us an idea what happens, they try and peck at the sausage, and the sausage flies away. So there's this kind of like ping pong, and not much option. The PAP is in a hard shell capsule, so you have to actually bite off a chunk of the sausage and swallow it to get the capsule into you. If you don't ingest the capsule, you don't get any toxin.
I'm assuming the half-life, just back on yours, the half-life obviously is, because you were saying by the time the crabs kind of got into potentially a carcass or something, it's no longer...
Yeah, it starts to degrade as soon as it escapes from the capsule. So the capsule is a hard shell, and it dissolves in the acid in the gut. And at that point, it's a matter of hours that it has its effect. The cat passes, and the stuff starts to break down. And within a day or two, it's completely inert.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming these are all monitored and stuff anyways, so there's people, I mean, it would have to be with the rock iguanas, so that if a cat didn't get it in the night, obviously it's taken before
Yes.
the rock iguanas are up in the morning.
Yeah, that's
You'll get it,
that's absolutely essential. Yes, and it's this. Yeah, yeah, and it's the same with the leg hold traps. If we ever actually have to use one, is it has to be on a raised platform so that crabs and small things can't accidentally get tangled up in it. It has to be baited with cat scent, not with any kind of meat thing that would attract an iguana up on there. And again, we monitored these things for 50 of them all over Little Cayman for 2 weeks at a time, and nothing goes on there except cats. We had one rock iguana jump up onto a drum and jump back down again. Don't know why it wanted to do that. So these are things we've tested, because obviously the questions you're asking are the questions we're also concerned about.
Yeah. And with the Department of Agriculture, would that be also like the veterinary board and stuff? Or maybe not the veterinary board, I shouldn't say that, but veterinary oversight, I guess, on some of it, just based, I guess I just didn't know if there's needed to be veterinary involvement in it.
The Animals Act is very clear about
That's
what's
kind of,
actually required,
Yeah.
and to use a prescribed poison to control an alien species to protect wildlife, to paraphrase what the law says.
Yeah.
The Director of Agriculture can authorize any person to use any prescribed toxin.
Yeah.
So it's down to the Director of
Yeah.
Agriculture.
Of course, it's, I think most people understand that feral cats are responsible for extinctions around the world. This isn't unique to the Cayman Islands. I read about one island where a lighthouse keeper's cat killed many species on one island. So it seems like a really unique opportunity we have to save what we have in Little Cayman, that we've down to just a few individuals left, that we can sort of stop the progress of that now before they keep going, year after year, propagating.
Otherwise, it starts to look like the green iguana cull. It just goes on and on and on forever.
100%.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can say from a personal, subjective, whatever you want to call it, I mean, the numbers of iguanas are, I've never seen anything like it in the many, many years of going there. And the all different age categories. You used to see adults, but nobody young, and the juveniles, and they're all there now. Since it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a real transformation.
Well, as you brought up, islands, have a unique profile, being subjected to introduced species, which can be done by human beings, or they can just float over there, as we know iguanas have done that, the green iguanas. I understand, I absolutely believe that New Zealand and Australia have lost so many, many to extinction, pure extinction. But I'm just trying to get a grasp on why this, and trust me, I understand about the need to protect our native species, but we certainly haven't seen extinction. I don't know of any, other than I think a crocodile that we had living on the islands at one time, and certainly the islands were fished with the turtles from the natives. I just can't really fathom the need to go to, because I'm looking at it from the cultural point of view. The little old ladies like me that, love them, feed them, they're my family. How do you explain that when somebody's lost their animal like that, this animal which is like a child to them?
That's why we register everybody's pet cats, so that we don't take them out. So we haven't killed anybody's pet cat.
How many, okay, it hasn't happened yet.
No, and it's not something we want to do. So if you've got pet cats, register them with us.
They are registered.
Then we...
But my cats do roam.
And that's obviously...
When I first moved there, there were no boobies on the beach. They were all on the bluff.
I know.
Once they started building the roads, that's when the animals went back. And from my understanding is they first came because generally those booby birds are found on isolated, uninhabited islands, and they roost because there is no bluff there. They roost on the beaches. But when they came to Cayman Brac, they moved up to the bluff. Now we have development going on up there, and I can tell you for a fact, I have witnessed a helicopter landing in the main nesting site in the middle of Southside, and I did call CIAA, because he was a friend of mine, and I said, do you realize you have a helicopter that just landed on top of a colony of booby birds? And he started laughing at me. I said, I'm not laughing. I'm standing on my balcony watching this go on right now. It was a helicopter that brought over real estate agents to look at some property up on the bluff.
Wow. Doesn't sound...
I have sat there when I was writing my book. My computer is towards the back where I have the bluff there, and they were building those roads up there, and it was like my house was shaking.
Yeah.
They've had boulders knocked over during that time. So now all the birds are on the beach, and my cats that have been allowed to, they were feral when they came to me. They're my ferals. They're my family ferals. So I'm trying to grasp just how bad we are when, Australia and New Zealand have had multiple extinctions, and I can understand their need for the need.
So the need I can address. We would undoubtedly not have brown boobies on Cayman Brac 10 years from now if we didn't intervene.
How much percentage of this is also due to development?
There's no development.
And roadkill.
I'm talking particularly about the east end of the Brac, where there used to be tens of thousands of nesting brown boobies. That big colony that all the old-time Brackers talk about. That colony is the main one for the Brac.
Right.
What's happening on Southside is a satellite, and they've been up on the bluff and down on the shore and up on the bluff again and down on the shore. And it looks like it's probably going to vanish. But if it's going to stick, at least we can try and help it stick. But I basically, if we don't intervene on Cayman Brac, the brown boobies will be locally extinct. I mean, that we may be too late already. They may still go locally extinct. The rock iguana population on Little Cayman would have gone extinct if we couldn't do anything about this. They're losing so many adults to roadkill. Having all of their young taken by feral cats at the same time is basically a recipe for a doomed population. So no, we haven't seen the extinction, but we could see it coming. The Grand Cayman thrush is our flagship extinction, I guess. And that happened a long time ago.
The boobies, brown boobies, have been nesting for 20 to 50,000 years. And we are faced with immediate extirpation, not extinction, extirpation. And that's what New Zealand and Australia are fighting against, is the extirpation of their native species. They've already lost so many to extinction. They're just trying to save what they do have. And since the trapping of feral cats and dogs in the Botanic Park started in earnest, I've seen the population of ground doves, 3 species, come back dramatically. The Caribbean dove, the native dove, and the ground dove. Without the efforts trapping the cats in the Botanic Park, they were virtually non-existent. As soon as you get outside of the park, you're hard-pressed to find them. Hard-pressed to find them. And they too are flagship species for the Cayman Islands.
Just to put the pet cat, feral cat thing into perspective, I mean, I had a lot of information from Luke Harding at the time when he was running the Blue Iguana program, and he had removed, I think he'd trapped something like 60 cats in the Botanic Park by the time he left. Not a single one of those was a pet cat. There were none with microchips, none, absolutely zero. And they were all crazy feral cats. So a lot of what we're dealing with, I mean, the vast majority of what we're trying to control here is completely feral. These are animals that are living out in the deep wilderness, living 100% off native species.
I'd just like to point out too, like, I mean, veterinarian, so it's you know, and I understand the cat, but it is an invasive species, and I think sometimes we lose sight of that. Like, it's like the green iguana. The green iguana is an invasive species, and the cat is an invasive species when it's a feral cat that's out. It's not a native part of our wildlife, and so it's hard to kind of separate it, I think, a little bit, because they are a pet, more so than a green iguana is, although they also can be pets. But I do think that that's what we can't lose sight of, is that it is an invasive species that is a detriment to the natural wildlife that is here, like the green iguana and anything else that's invasive.
And what's been the condition of these feral cats?
It's not good. The parasite load in these animals is actually shocking. We have done necropsies on all the cats that we've trapped on Little Cayman. Almost without exception, they have heavy tapeworm infestations. Sometimes so many tapeworms that it's literally blocking their guts and the animals are starving. There are also roundworms and whipworms that turn up from time to time. They also have a lot of physical injuries. They have broken teeth, they have scars, some of them are partly blind. They're obviously not thriving in this environment, and there's signs to suggest that their breeding success isn't great. I think they lose a lot of kittens to the harshness of the environment. I suspect crab predation of kittens might be a factor. Because what we're finding is when we go there and we remove a bunch of cats, and then we don't go back for 3 months, and then we go back again, and then we go back again, 4 times a year, pulsed control, instead of it going like this, it just went. Yeah. So it's like there was almost no reproduction pressure pushing back against our control over that time frame of a year, which suggests they don't have a lot of what's the word?
Recruitment.
Reproductive power in this environment, which is unusual because feral cats can be incredibly fecund. But I think they're finding it very harsh, and I think this parasite load is extreme. We also know what they're eating, of course, because we're looking at what's in their guts, and we find Cistrales rock iguanas, we find Celestus, the little endemic gallywasps that they're feeding on. We find all kinds of bird feathers that talk about the wild birds they're taking. Lion lizards are a big target as well.
Plastic.
And they're eating plastic and cardboard and
Rubber.
And human wastes from the dump. So yeah, it's not a good scene, and you could argue that having a cat living in that kind of environment is inhumane in itself. But I'll let others opine on that.
Well, we might also look at the fact that we had a really big push for spay-neutering back in the early 2010s, and then along came COVID, and we had how many years nobody was going out doing anything. We couldn't. And there's been nothing to try to compensate for that, as far as getting some funding to get spay neuter clinics, get NGOs over here to offer their assistance and their energy and their time and their resources to help us with reducing the population. Because there's a lot of us that are taking care of colonies. I mean, we've had them spayed and neutered, but they migrate. They find their way to migrate into, and I'm facing that right now. We have no doctor and no vet until next month.
Yeah.
And they'll probably be popping kittens out in a couple of days, if not weeks.
Vet services availability in the Sister Isles is a problem.
It's a problem.
That we really need to find some way to address.
I mean, it's cruel. It's really cruel. It's extremely cruel to live on an island that offers no veterinary care for 6 months out of the year.
Yeah, it's not
You know, they don't, sorry, you got to wait another 6 months before the vet comes back. No.
Yeah.
Agreed. And that is highlighted in what, in the background notes to this motion.
Yeah.
I would just like to frame our thinking for just a moment. The motion is the decision to approve the updated procedures for control feral cats in environmentally sensitive areas. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about procedures that are immensely more humane than what is used currently. This is a step in the right direction of treating animals, feral or otherwise, humanely, and protecting our native species. So is there further discussion? I don't want to shut anybody down. I think we should keep discussing it. There are lots of things that this council should suggest, recommend, and do. And I think we ought to focus on that in meetings to come.
Well, I think, getting out there and getting some work into the field as far as reducing through people that, like me, are taking care of cats. And I can only speak for myself, but there's more of me, lots more of me. Get out there and get the cat population reduced. And when we come across cats that are thoroughly emaciated, yes, I agree, they need to be humanely put down. But if there's a breeding breeding cat that's coming in, if we can get her and she's being properly taken care of, why not put out the effort towards the community to put more effort into reducing it through spay-neuter efforts, catios, sanctuaries?
Catios and sanctuaries I would endorse. Neuter release on the scale that we're talking about does not work to reduce populations, and it does not reduce predation. I'd really caution people not to get diverted down that. It's a feel-good thing. It offers the possibility that you don't have to use lethal methods, but it doesn't work. Not to reduce populations. It perpetuates the status quo. It may stop the population growing a lot bigger. It may slow down the population growth, but it doesn't effectively reduce the population.
Then why are all these other countries doing it and
because
able to control? I mean, the UK and
the UK is not an example we should be following here. Speaking as a Brit, I think Canada might be a better one.
Questionable. Other British overseas territories are good examples.
Yeah.
Okay, we still have an opportunity to discuss this motion. I do want to hear if we have someone who will move the motion, please.
Move the motion.
Nicholas, seconder.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, further discussion before we vote. We have a couple of individuals on Zoom. Wilbur, Director of Agriculture, do you have Any thoughts to relay? Putting you on the spot. Anybody else? In favor? Against? Abstentions? 1. Motion's carried. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Fred, for that. We have the next general meeting. Go back to the agenda. You're heading there.
Sorry.
Is the 10th of December, 2025 at 1 p.m. That noted, is there any other business? Thank you, everybody, for your attendance today. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Several government administrations and a host of legislators spent over a decade and numerous rounds of public consultation agreeing the specific provisions of the National Conservation Act, which passed unanimously in 2013. The Act establishes the National Conservation Council that was created to promote and secure biological diversity and the sustainable use of natural resources in the Cayman Islands. Many in our community feel directly the continuing loss of Cayman's natural heritage and are growing increasingly concerned that our native habitats and unique plants and animals will not be known by the generations that follow us. At present, the Act provides the only legal means of giving effect to the constitutionally protected principles of sustainability, whereby social, economic, and environmental perspectives have equal weight at the table. The National Conservation Council has a mandate to ensure that we can continue to enjoy the magic of Cayman's biodiversity for many generations to come. But to be successful, we all must work together as a community to build and preserve the Cayman that we want and wish for our children to inherit.
What if there was a way for science to reliably predict the outcomes of certain actions before they cause irreversible damage? Well, we can't quite do that,